Architect of resistance, voice of the unbroken. When Winnie Madikizela-Mandela died in 2018, South Africa stopped. Not because a politician had passed, but because a chapter of resistance had closed. Crowds filled the streets. Struggle songs returned to the air. Fists rose, not in anger, but in remembrance. She was called many things: a revolutionary, a radical, a mother, a controversy. But above all, she was unavoidable. To tell the story of South Africa's freedom without Winnie Mandela is to leave out the backbone of resistance, the years when hope survived not in prison cells, but in townships under siege. This is the story of a woman who carried the revolution on her shoulders and paid for it with her life, her peace, and her reputation. Nomzamo Winnie Madikizela was born on September 26, 1936, in Bizana, Eastern Cape. Her name, Nomzamo, means one who tries, a name that would define her life. Raised in a disciplined Xhosa household, Winnie grew up understanding structure, responsibility, and community. Her parents were educators, and from them, she learned that knowledge was power, especially in a system designed to keep Black people ignorant. She excelled academically and later became one of the first Black women social workers in South Africa. As a social worker, Winnie entered homes shattered by apartheid laws, forced removals, migrant labor, broken families. She did not read about injustice. She touched it. This profession shaped her lifelong commitment to the poor, women, and children, long before politics claimed her name. When Winnie married Nelson Mandela in 1958, she married more than a man. She married a movement. Nelson Mandela was already a leading figure in the African National Congress, targeted, watched, and hunted by the apartheid state. Within 4 years, he was imprisoned. When Nelson Mandela disappeared behind bars, Winnie Mandela became the physical presence of the ANC inside South Africa. She carried messages. She spoke when others were silenced. She kept the Mandela name alive in public consciousness. Her achievement during this period was not symbolic. It was strategic survival of resistance. The apartheid regime identified Winnie Mandela as dangerous, not because she carried a weapon, but because she carried influence. She was arrested repeatedly, detained without trial, harassed day and night. In 1969, she was placed in solitary confinement for over 400 days. This was psychological warfare. Yet, when she emerged, she did not retreat. Her endurance alone became a political weapon. The state tried to isolate her, but isolation only sharpened her resolve. Winnie Mandela was forcibly removed from Soweto and exiled to Brandfort, a remote and hostile town. This was meant to break her. Instead, she rebuilt. She organized local women, helped children attend school, provided support to the sick and unemployed. Her contribution here is often overlooked. She practiced grassroots leadership under banishment. Even silenced by law, she governed through service. The 1970s and 1980s were the most violent years of apartheid. Most ANC leaders were imprisoned or exiled. Winnie Mandela became the bridge between leadership and the masses. She spoke directly to the youth. She gave language to anger. She refused to dilute resistance. Her achievement was mobilization, sustaining political energy inside South Africa when it could have collapsed. She inspired courage in a generation that would later dismantle apartheid. Winnie Mandela redefined the role of women in liberation movements. She was not a background supporter. She was a commander of presence. She challenged patriarchy inside the struggle itself. Her contribution shaped the visibility of women in post-apartheid leadership and activism. She proved that women could lead resistance, openly, forcefully, unapologetically. No honest history avoids complexity. The late 1980s brought allegations, violence, and tragedy. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission held Winnie Mandela accountable for political responsibility in certain abuses. This chapter damaged her reputation, but it also exposed the brutal psychological toll of long-term state violence. Her life became a warning. Oppression does not leave its victims untouched. After apartheid, Winnie Mandela entered democratic politics. She served as a member of parliament, representing the poor and marginalized. She challenged elite politics. She questioned economic inequality. She warned that political freedom without economic justice was incomplete. Her contribution to the new South Africa was critical opposition from within. She kept uncomfortable truths alive. She reminded the nation who had paid the highest price for freedom. In her final years, Winnie Mandela remained a symbol, flawed, fierce, unbroken. She spoke for the forgotten. She refused to rewrite her anger to satisfy history. When she died, South Africa mourned not perfection, but sacrifice. Winnie Madikizela-Mandela did not simply witness South Africa's birth. She held it together when it could have collapsed. Her achievements were not always written in law. They were written in courage, endurance, and presence. She shaped South Africa by refusing silence, by keeping resistance alive, by standing when standing meant suffering. She reminds us that freedom is not only negotiated in rooms, it is defended in streets, homes, and hearts. Winnie Mandela was not easy to love, but she was impossible to ignore. And South Africa is different because she lived. As the sun sets over South Africa, we are reminded that history does not live only in books. It lives in people, in choices, in courage tested by fire. Winnie Madikizela-Mandela did not choose an easy path. She chose a necessary one. She stood when standing meant suffering. She spoke when silence was safer. She endured when endurance felt impossible. Her life was not shaped by comfort. It was shaped by resistance. Today, we pause not to argue over her humanity, but to appreciate her contribution. Because without women like Winnie Mandela, the story of freedom would be incomplete. She carried the struggle when prisons swallowed leaders. She held communities together when fear ruled the streets. She reminded a nation that liberation is not only negotiated, it is defended. This documentary does not ask you to see perfection. It asks you to see truth. Truth forged in pain. Truth shaped by sacrifice. Truth told from an African voice. This film is an original EFG-AFRICA documentary, created to honor African history with dignity, balance, and depth. Because Africa's story deserves to be told by Africans, in full color, full context, and full courage. As we remember Winnie Madikizela-Mandela, we remember every woman who stood in her shadow and light, every mother who resisted quietly, every daughter who learned that strength has many faces. Her fire did not burn in vain. It lit a path. If this story moved you, if it taught you something new, if it challenged you to think deeper about freedom, we invite you to become part of the EFG-AFRICA family. Subscribe for original African documentaries. Like this film to honor the stories that shaped a continent. Share it, so the truth travels further than silence ever could. Because history is not finished. Africa is still writing. And at EFG-AFRICA, we are committed to telling it, fully, fearlessly, and forever.